I have lived in Tornado Alley my entire life. I know the sound of the weather radio better than most people know their favorite songs. That harsh electronic tone, followed by the automated voice reading warnings about severe thunderstorms, tornado watches, flash floods. It is the background noise of spring in Kansas. But something is wrong with the warning that has been playing since last night. My name is Keith Embry. I am 37 years old, a high school history teacher in the small town of Caldwell. I live here with my wife Lorraine and our 8-year-old daughter Piper. We have weathered dozens of tornado seasons together, have spent countless nights listening to the radio for updates, have learned to take the warnings seriously without letting them control our lives. What I am hearing now is different. The weather radio activated around 8 last night, a tornado warning for Caldwell and surrounding counties, valid until further notice. Standard procedure during severe weather. That was 14 hours ago. The same message is still playing. The same words, the same information, repeating on an endless loop. But that is not what has me sitting at my kitchen table at 10 in the morning, staring at the radio with growing unease. It is the voice. The voice reading the warning has changed. When it started last night, it sounded like the normal automated system. That slightly robotic female voice that reads every weather alert. But over the past 14 hours, something has shifted. The voice sounds tired now, hoarse, strained, as if someone has been speaking continuously for 14 hours without rest. Automated systems do not get tired. Pre-recorded messages do not develop vocal fatigue. Whatever is speaking through my weather radio, it is not a machine. The storm had been building for 2 days. A massive system moving across the plains, spawning tornadoes and severe weather across multiple states. The forecasters warned that Caldwell was in the direct path. We prepared like we always do. Stocked the shelter, charged our phones, made sure we had batteries for the radios. I gathered my family in the living room when the first warning came through, ready to move to safety if needed. But the tornado never arrived. The storm passed to the north around midnight. The radar showed the rotation moving away from us, the immediate threat diminishing. Other towns were not so lucky. Reports came in of damage 20 miles north, 40 miles east. The usual scattered destruction. By 2 in the morning, the danger seemed to have passed. Lorraine and I put Piper to bed, left the weather radio on just in case, and tried to get some sleep. The warning kept playing. I woke around 6 to use the bathroom and heard it still going. The same message. The same tornado warning for Caldwell County. I assumed it was a technical glitch, some failure in the system that had not updated properly. Then I listened more closely. The voice was different, just a slight roughness that had not been there before, a hint of strain in certain words, the kind of change you hear in a person's voice after they have been talking for hours without rest. I turned on the television, checked the local news. Sunny skies, damage reports from other areas. No mention of ongoing threats to Caldwell. The tornado warning on the TV had been cancelled hours ago, but the radio kept playing, and the voice kept getting more tired. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, listening to each repetition of the warning, comparing it to the ones before. The words were the same. The information was the same. But the delivery was deteriorating. By 8 in the morning, the voice had developed a noticeable rasp. Certain syllables were being drawn out, as if the speaker was struggling to maintain breath support. Pauses appeared in strange places, tiny hesitations that broke the rhythm. By 9, the voice was clearly struggling. Words slurred together. The pitch wavered, dropping lower than it should, cracking on certain consonants. There was a wetness to some of the sounds, as if the speaker's throat was raw and inflamed. I called the National Weather Service office in Wichita, got a recording saying all circuits were busy, called the local emergency management office, same thing. Lorraine came into the kitchen, asked why I was staring at the radio. I told her to listen. She stood there for one full repetition of the warning, her face shifting from confusion to concern. She heard it too, the exhaustion in the voice, the strain of someone who had been speaking for far too long. We tried turning the radio off, unplugging it, removing the batteries. The warning kept playing. The voice came through the speaker even without power. Quieter, barely audible, but unmistakably present. I plugged the radio back in. The volume returned to normal, and the warning continued. The voice was worse now. A dry, clicking quality had entered certain words, the sound of a mouth that desperately needed water. The breathing between sentences was audible, labored, painful. Whoever or whatever was speaking through our radio, it was suffering, and it could not stop. I told Lorraine to stay with Piper, to keep the doors locked, to not answer if anyone knocked. I did not know why I gave those instructions. Something about the voice had put me on edge. I drove through Caldwell, looking for signs of anything unusual. The town looked normal at first, cars in driveways, people walking dogs. But something was off. I saw people standing on their porches, staring at nothing, sitting in their cars in their driveways, not moving, standing in their yards with their heads tilted, as if listening to something. Everyone was listening. Everyone had their weather radios playing. I stopped at the gas station on the edge of town. The attendant, a young man named Corbett, was sitting behind the counter with a portable radio in front of him. I asked if anyone else had noticed the voice changing. Corbett looked at me with hollow eyes, said everyone had noticed, said the whole town was listening, waiting for the warning to stop, waiting for the voice to finally give out. He said some people had started doing strange things, walking toward the radio station on the hill at the edge of town, the one that broadcasts the weather alerts, walking there and not coming back. Corbett said he was not going to look, was just going to sit here and listen and wait for it to end. I asked what he thought was speaking through the radio. He did not answer, just turned the volume up and stared at the speaker. I left, drove toward the radio station on the hill. The warning played through my car radio the entire way. The voice was getting worse, breaking now, cracking on words it had spoken clearly just hours ago, begging almost, though the words remained the same. The radio station was a small facility, just a single building with a transmission tower rising behind it. The station handled local broadcasts during the day and relayed National Weather Service alerts during emergencies. The parking lot was full of cars, dozens of them, parked haphazardly, doors left open, engines still running in some cases. The people who had driven them were nowhere to be seen. I parked at the edge of the lot and approached the building on foot. The front door was standing open, and from inside, I could hear the warning playing, louder than it should be. the voice filling the building with its exhausted repetitions. I stepped inside. The lobby was empty. The offices beyond were empty. But the broadcast booth at the end of the hall had a light on, and I could see shapes through the window. Figures standing motionless in the small room. I approached slowly. Each step brought the voice more clearly, that terrible strained sound of someone who had been speaking for 14 hours without pause. I reached the window, looked inside. The booth was full of people, the citizens of Caldwell who had walked to the station. They stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the broadcast console, their eyes fixed on the equipment, their mouths hanging slightly open. And at the console, sitting in the operator's chair, was a woman I did not recognize. She was thin, pale, her hair lank and unwashed. Her lips were cracked and bleeding, her throat visibly swollen, her eyes red and streaming with tears. She was speaking into the microphone, reading from a script on the console in front of her. The same warning, over and over. Her voice, the voice that had been playing through every radio in town for 14 hours. She was not a recording. She was not automated. She was a person, speaking the warning live, unable to stop. Her eyes met mine through the window. I saw desperation there, terror, exhaustion beyond anything I had ever witnessed. She kept speaking, could not stop speaking. The words poured from her ruined throat, and the people standing around her listened with blank faces, as if hypnotized, as if the voice had reached into their minds and turned off everything except the need to hear more. I tried the door, locked. I pounded on the glass. The woman's eyes followed me, pleading, but she did not stop speaking. The people in the booth did not react at all. I stood there watching, trying to understand what I was seeing. The woman at the microphone was trapped, not physically restrained, but trapped nonetheless. Something had taken hold of her, had forced her to begin speaking the warning, and now would not let her stop. The people gathered around her were the same. They had come to investigate the voice, had entered the booth, and had been caught. Now they stood there, feeding on the sound, needing to hear it continue. I backed away from the window. My instincts screamed at me to run. But Lorraine was at home. Piper was at home. And the warning was playing through their radio too, that voice reaching out to them, calling them. I ran back to my car, drove faster than I should have on roads still wet from the storm. The warning played through my speakers, the woman's voice breaking and cracking, barely intelligible now, but still forming the words. I noticed something I had not caught before. Beneath the warning, beneath the information about tornadoes and counties, there was something else, a whisper, barely audible. The woman was trying to say something, trying to add her own words to the mandated message. I listened carefully, and I heard it. She was saying, "Do not listen." She was saying, "Turn it off." She was saying, "Please, please, stop listening. It feeds on attention. It grows stronger when you hear it." But no one could turn it off. The radios played even without power. The warning reached every speaker, every device, every ear in town. And with every repetition, with every person who stopped to listen, the thing in the broadcast grew stronger. I reached my house, ran inside, found Lorraine and Piper in the living room, sitting in front of the weather radio, their faces blank, their eyes empty, listening. I shouted at them, shook them. tried to physically move them away from the radio. They did not respond, just sat there with those empty eyes, drinking in the sound of the exhausted voice. I grabbed the radio and threw it across the room. It shattered against the wall. The voice continued, coming from everywhere now. The television, Lorraine's phone on the kitchen counter, Piper's tablet upstairs. Every speaker in the house was broadcasting the warning. I ran through the house, destroying devices, unplugging electronics. But for every speaker I disabled, another seemed to activate. The microwave, the alarm clocks, the old radio in the garage, and Lorraine and Piper were standing now, moving toward the front door, heading for the station on the hill. I blocked the door, begged them to stop, to fight it, to remember who they were. Piper looked at me with those empty eyes. Her mouth moved, forming words that were not hers. She started reciting the warning, her 8-year-old voice joining the woman's, adding to the chorus. I screamed, grabbed my daughter, held her tight, tried to cover her ears and her mouth. But the words kept coming. Lorraine was at the door now, trying to get past me. Her movements were slow, mechanical, but relentless. She needed to reach the station, needed to join the others. I made a choice. I could not save them by staying here, by fighting the voice that had already taken root in their minds. I needed to stop it at the source. I let Lorraine push past me, watched my wife and daughter walk out into the morning light, heading for the station. Then I ran to the garage, got in my car, drove toward the tower. If the voice was being broadcast from that station, then the station could be destroyed. The tower could be brought down. The signal could be stopped. It was the only chance I had. More cars in the parking lot now. More people walking toward the building with those empty expressions. The town was emptying, everyone drawn to the voice. I drove past the building, around to the back where the transmission tower stood. A chain-link fence surrounded it, but the gate was open. I parked at the base of the tower, looked up at the metal structure rising into the sky. I had brought tools from the garage, a heavy wrench, a hacksaw, anything I thought might damage the equipment. I did not know exactly how broadcast towers worked, but I knew they needed power, needed functioning equipment. Destroy that, and the voice would stop. I approached the equipment housing at the base of the tower, started working on the access panel. The warning was louder here, coming from speakers mounted on the building, the woman's voice filling the air. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus, but the sound wormed into my head, made my hands slow, made my thoughts fuzzy. I forced myself to keep working, thought about Piper, about her empty eyes, about her voice joining the chorus. Used the anger and the fear to push back against the compulsion to stop and listen. The panel came free. Inside, I saw cables and junction boxes and equipment I did not understand. I started cutting wires, smashing components, destroying anything that looked important. The voice stuttered, skipped. The warning repeated a word, then repeated it again, then produced a burst of static. I was hurting it. Whatever was using the broadcast to spread, I was hurting it. I kept destroying, cut every wire I could find, smashed every piece of equipment I could reach. The voice stopped. Silence fell over the station, over the town, over every radio that had been playing the warning for 14 hours. For one long moment, everything was quiet. I stood at the base of the tower, breathing hard, my hands cut and bleeding. The silence was profound. After 14 hours of the constant warning, the absence of sound was almost painful. I ran back to the building, to the broadcast booth. The booth was empty. The people who had been standing there were gone, vanished as if they had never existed. The woman at the microphone was gone too. Only the chair and the script remained. I picked up the script, read the words that the woman had been forced to recite for 14 hours. A standard tornado warning, nothing unusual. But at the bottom of the page, written in a shaking hand, were other words. Words the woman had added herself. The words said it came through the signal, said it needed voices to exist, needed ears to hear, needed attention to grow strong, said it had been waiting for a broadcast long enough to build its power. The words said it was not gone, said destroying the tower had only weakened it, had driven it back, had not killed it. The words said it would find another signal, another voice, another way to reach the ears of the living. I dropped the script, walked outside, found my family in the parking lot. Lorraine holding Piper, both of them looking dazed and confused but present, themselves again. They did not remember walking to the station, did not remember the hours of listening, did not remember Piper's voice joining the broadcast. I did not tell them, just held them and cried. It has been 3 months since the incident at the radio station. The tower has not been rebuilt. The station has been closed. The official explanation citing equipment damage from the storm. No one in Caldwell talks about what happened. The hours of the broadcast have become a shared silence, a trauma that the town has collectively agreed to bury. The woman who spoke the warning has never been identified, never been found. I have removed every radio from my home, have disconnected every speaker, disabled every device that could receive a broadcast. Lorraine thinks I am being paranoid, but she does not argue. Something in her remembers, even if her conscious mind has blocked it out. I listen to the silence now. Pay attention to any sound that might be a voice, that might be a broadcast, that might be something trying to reach me through the airwaves. And sometimes, late at night, I hear it, a whisper of static from somewhere in the house, a hint of a voice, exhausted and strained, trying to form words, the thing in the signal reaching out, looking for a way back. I find the source each time. A phone that was supposed to be turned off. A tablet that should have been disabled. Some device that has reconnected itself. I destroy them, smash them, make sure they can never carry a voice again. But I know I cannot destroy every speaker in the world, cannot silence every broadcast. The thing is still out there, still waiting, still looking for a voice to wear and ears to hear. Pay attention to the voices on your radio. The automated alerts, the emergency broadcasts, the weather warnings that interrupt normal programming. Listen carefully, not to the words, but to the voice itself. Notice if it sounds tired. Notice if it sounds strained. Notice if there is something underneath the official message, a whisper trying to break through. If you hear a voice that sounds exhausted, that sounds like it has been speaking for too long, turn off the radio immediately. Unplug it. destroy it if you have to. Because the thing in the signal is not broadcasting to inform you. It is broadcasting to catch you, to draw you in, to make you listen, to feed on your attention until it is strong enough to take more. Something exists in frequencies, in wavelengths, in the spaces between sounds. Something that learned to ride on broadcasts, to use human technology as a highway into human minds. It found a way in through that tornado warning, forced a woman to speak for it, used her voice to reach an entire town. And when I destroyed the tower, it retreated, but it did not die. It is still out there, in the static, in the silence between stations, waiting for another long broadcast to give it power, the next emergency, the next extended warning, the next voice speaking the same words over and over for hours on end. When you hear that voice start to tire, start to strain, start to break under the weight of repetition, you will know it has found another host. And by then, it might be too late to stop listening. I keep my radios destroyed, keep my house silent, live in the quiet. But sometimes I wake up at night with words on my lips. Words I do not remember choosing to speak. The beginning of a warning, a broadcast, a message that wants to be heard. I bite my tongue until it bleeds, force the words back down, because I know what happens if I let them out. I know that the thing in the signal is still looking for a voice, and I am terrified that one day it will find mine, that I will wake up speaking and not be able to stop, that my voice will go out across the airwaves, tired and strained and breaking, warning people about dangers that do not exist, while something else uses my words to spread. That somewhere, in a kitchen in some small town, someone will be sitting at their table, listening to my exhausted voice, noticing that something is wrong. And by then, it will be too late for both of us. So I stay silent, stay vigilant, destroy every speaker I find, and I pray that the next long broadcast does not carry something in its signal, that the next tired voice on the radio is just a glitch, just a malfunction, just a system that needs to be reset. Because if it is not, if the thing in the signal has found another way in, then it will spread again, and this time there might not be anyone left to stop it.